Hello everyone, how you doing? Thought I'd make a YouTube video, show me face. I haven't felt like making one for a while, for a load of things going on, and I've been writing my book. So, but we'll get back to that at a later date, because I've got a couple of stories I kind of talk about. But any case, to get us into the swing of things with the YouTube, I thought that I would make a video around prison news. You'll all probably just find it boring, me reading a few articles, making a few comments and stuff like that. But I give my opinion on what I think, because it looks like there's some positive stuff coming into the prison system, and then I'm looking to try and do things a little bit differently. But also it could just be the guise of something else. Well, here we go. All this information that I'm getting from here is from Inside Time. It's a prison magazine, and it prison newspaper, sorry, and it gets delivered to prisoners once a month. So you can look it up on Google. Right, so this article, warm welcome for prisoner apprenticeships. Scroll down. Right. A change in the law to allow prisoners to take up apprenticeships has been widely welcomed by rehabilitation charities and education providers. The opportunity will be offered initially to up to 100 residents of open prisons in England who go out to work on day release, before being extended more broadly. Ministers announced the move this month, saying it will allow prisoners to learn the skills they need to hold down a steady job after release. Well, I think there's loads of things that they could be doing. We're helping people get into work and that, and not commit further crimes. It's one of those things, isn't it, that's been abused for a long, long time. Prison's always been about mental abuse, not rehabilitation. But this is looking positive. More than 300,000 people a year take up apprenticeship contracts in England, doing real jobs and getting paid, whilst being trained and assessed. However, until now, prisoners have been excluded because under the Prison Act 1952, they cannot hold employment contracts. The Ministry of Justice said the necessary changes to legalisation to allow prisoners to take up apprenticeships would be made later this year. Right, but this is only in open conditions. I wonder how this change is going to affect the C cats, the B cats, the dispersal system, because this is a law that's coming in that every prisoner in England and Wales can get an outside contract job in prison. Only thing is, the governor, I worked in something like this in an open prison where I was getting like 120 quid a week, but I had to be at work in the chicken factory. It was like working in a big chicken fridge, in a big fridge with loads of chicken, putting them in boxes and stacking pallets and loading pallets. I loved loading the pallets, and it was brilliant. But to get that 120 quid, you had to work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and then you had the choice to stay on or go back for your tea, or stay on and do overtime till 7 at night, and you'd get your 120 quid, or you'd get 90 quid, for going back to the billet. at 4 o'clock. Well, however, the governor didn't like how much money we were getting paid. It was dead handy for us because we could save for our home leaves and everything. It was great. But the governor took all that money off. We wouldn't allow it to get paid more than £40 and used all the money that he got from that business coming into that prison and employing us. The wages that they were paying, meant to be paying us, they were giving it to the jail, and the jail were paying everybody, or every prisoners who was working in that jail were getting paid for other prisoners' labour. So this is how the economic slavery comes into it, where they get you working for naught, you're putting in proper shifts, you're working hard, and they didn't pay you. So, yeah, we can. Right, so an MOJ spokesperson, the government will ensure that prisoners at open prisons across England are able to apply apprenticeship opportunities in vital industries, including hospitality and construction, providing direct routes into jobs with businesses in the community. Officials said that hundreds of prisoners are expected to start apprenticeships by 2025, with pre-apprenticeship training for thousands more. For thousands more. So where are they going to get all these thousands of bloody low risk prisoners from? The fact is that there's a lot of low risk prisoners in prison that shouldn't even be in prison. That's the truth. Unemployment among ex-prisoners is high, with only 11% of male prison leavers and 4% of female prison leavers having jobs 6 weeks after release. Since Dominic Raab became Justice Secretary last September, the Deputy Prime Minister himself, he has put a focus on getting more prison leavers into work. This is good. This is just how you're going to deal with the day cats, and how we're going to deal with the C cats and the B cats and the dispersal prisoners. Are they going to be economic slaves and only feel the true benefit of this thing if they go to day cat? Which none of them ever will. There's only people who are lifers or not that are like that. That category of prisoner who's a lifer has to go to day cat open conditions before they can be released. It's crazy. Anyways, Justice Secretary, he has put a focus on getting more prison leavers into work, announcing apprenticeship schemes. He said it would give ex-prisoners a second chance to lead a more positive life and stay on the straight and narrow. It will, I think, if it will. It will if it can get them a proper apprenticeship with a decent paid job, and they've addressed their drug issues and all that emotional issues, then it'll be they'll be all right. Or it could be a recipe for disaster if they've not addressed their drug issues and you give them money, and or emotional violent issues, but violent prisoners don't get the day cats, do they? Only the lifers do. Mostly drug dealers, I think, and day cats. While and fraudsters, sex offenders as well. While Education Secretary Nadine Zawini said apprenticeships will offer prisoners a business with the skilled workforce they need to grow. Is it novice or novice? Novice. The biggest novice, I'll call it novice, because this prison education provider have been a novice in the prison system. it's been inadequate, but it's been underfunded, so you get what you pay for. Anyways, Novus, the biggest prison education provider, backed the government's move and said it hoped to play a part in training the new apprenticeships. It hoped. Get them now, sack them. We need new people in. Aye, it hoped to corrupt and make it lazy and substandard and not a chance of working. No, get rid of them people. Play a part in training the new apprenticeships. Peter Cox, managing director of Novus, said using education and training to support offenders from prison into employment is a critical step in giving them the tools they need to transform their lives. Aye, and you've been failing to educate with for a long time. Even though you've been underfunded, but, you know, you've been happy to take the wage and see an out. Right, rehabilitation charities including Unlock and Working Chance express support for the reform. Marie-Claire O'Brien, CEO and founder of the New Leaf Initiative, which supports ex-prisoners into work, called the move groundbreaking and said, after campaigning and researching for years on the topic of prisoners' ineligibility to be included as trainees and apprenticeships, we are extremely excited about the news today. Well, it could make a difference. And I think it will. It'll definitely help the lifers and all that, getting into work and, you know, make positive steps, because the lifers are emotionally adjusted. They wouldn't be in there. They wouldn't be in open conditions if they weren't ready and safe enough to be there, you see. So there's only a few who abscond, you know, and cause problems and stuff like that. It's no good. Aye. Robert Halfon, the Conservative MP who chairs the Commons Education Committee, has campaigned for prisoners to be offered apprenticeships. He said he was delighted by the announcement, adding, by doing this, the government has put social justice and skills at the heart of its agenda. A Conservative MP was you know, campaigning for prisoners' rights. That's good, that, man. The Conservatives need to do more of that. This month, RAB has visited 2 open prisons with strong track records of getting their former residents into work. At Prescott, an open prison in South Wales, which has a farm, he met prisoners working in land maintenance, animal care and woodland management. After all that, at Hartford, he was told that 88 of the 276 residents go out to work in the community. It's a positive thing, but it falls flat when they're on the street. In sectors including logistics, construction and catering. You've got to address drug issues in your... that's why they're staying C-cats and B-cats and dispersal, because they didn't address their drug issues, didn't address their criminal values, the emotional issues are still highly dangerous, and they're released from dangerous prisons. Dangerous prisoners are released from dangerous prisons, when it should be, you know, somehow made into safe prisoners, released from safe prisons. Never mind. The Prison Strategy White Paper published by RAB in December set out a range of initiatives to get more prison leavers into work. I like this, RAB. He seems to be doing alright. Alright, RAB. Let's give you a shout out. Right, get more prison leavers into work, including resettlement passports. Resettlement passports. So you'll get a passport when you go into prison, and that'll be your, and you'll have to follow to address your offending behaviour work in that passport and your vocational training. You'll be rewarded, hopefully, with good vocational training if you pass and do all your courses properly. Aye. Nee mention of opening up any more Grendons out like that. Right, let's get this sorted out. Right. Resettlement passports to ensure they are work ready with ID and CV and a bank account. Bank account. Aye. It's hard to get a bank account for prisoners and stuff and that. I mean, the government and the authorities are in no doubt of what my name is and what my ID is. But as soon as I walk into the bank, no matter what, I cannot seem to prove who I am. They won't give us a bank account, but never mind. Right, bank account, a new National Prison Education Service. So let's read this again, the full thing, right? The Prison Strategy White Paper published by RAB in December set out a range of initiatives to get more prison leavers into work, including resettlement passports to ensure they are work ready, should be addressing the emotional stuff, with ID, CV and a bank account. Great. It'd be great to get a bank account. A new National Prison Education Service to oversee learning in jails. That would be a new one. Get rid of that one who's hoping, because he's no good, or who, whatever they are, person, right? Aye. And, right, so that a new National Prisoner Education Service to oversee learning in jails and league tables which will rank prisons by how many of their former residents find work. Launching the plans, RAB said, prisons keep people safe by taking dangerous criminals off our streets, but they can only bring down crime and keep the public safer if they properly reform and rehabilitate offenders. Now that would be great if prisons could be made fit for function, so that like what our Deputy Prime Minister, Justice Secretary, has just said on their last 2 lines, fit for purpose prison system would be good. But what do you do with all the lads and lasses who are in C-cap prisons, B-cap prisons, dispersal prisons? What's going on for all them? Because they are affected by this law. I wonder how it will affect them. Will it affect them in a negative way? And that will only affect, and will only see positivity from this thing when they get the open conditions, which 90% of them will never get ever. Aye. Well, I'll read this next article out, and this is why. This is what, when we're talking about dangerous prisoners and stuff like that, right? I'll read this article because this is from, right, RAB, Dominic Raab, or Justice Secretary, or Deputy Prime Minister. RAB rules on moves to open conditions. So it's down to this fella here, whether any dangerous prisoner who's deeming to be reformed, it's down to him whether he can get this is a further restriction, new one that's been put on long-term prisoners, people who have committed violent offences like myself, stuff like that, or sitting in jail and who could be released providing that they've done the right reform. This guy makes it harder. And I wonder why. They keep making it harder. Right, Justice Secretary Dominic Raab now intervenes personally each time the parole board recommends that a high-risk prisoner moves to open conditions. Well, first of all, no high-risk prisoner should be ever moved to open conditions, right? First, you've got to work through the system, right, and reduce your risk. So any prisoner who's been a dangerous offender, right, doesn't mean that they're a high-risk prisoner. And by the time they're eligible for open conditions, they're deemed medium to low risk, not high risk. It's bollocks. Right. According to the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Justice, he began to practice last year after he was appointed to the role in September. The law gives the Justice Secretary the power to block transfers to open prisons. Anybody who's political are going to be on his radar. Oh, they're not getting out, whether they're reformed or not. But according to the MOJ, previous holders of the office, including RAB's predecessor, Robert Buckland QC, used to delegate the decisions to officials rather than getting involved themselves, and the power of veto is rarely used. The change in procedure was announced last week and made a political row over a life sentence prisoner. This is what I mean. If a life sentence prisoner absconds from open conditions, it creates problems like this. And if it's a sex offender, fucker, all the likes of my kind of prisoners and all that suffer, right? So, you know, lifers who get out of prison who are in close conditions, they've got a responsibility to the lads who are still sitting there rotting away. But sex offenders and stuff and that, they just care about themselves and nobody else. So there are a lot of us, but not like that, right? But it's mostly sex offenders that make changes like this, get changes like this and extra conditions put on people getting out of prison. Right, the change in procedure was announced last week and made a political row over a life sentence prisoner described by police as extremely dangerous, who absconded 3 weeks after arriving at North Sea Camp Open Prison. The Ministry of Justice, that although the prisoner had only just been transferred, the decision to move him to open conditions was taken by the parole board in February of last year and confirmed in June. I don't know if he's a sex offender. Confirmed in June when Buckland was still in post. Right? Well, that was the QC bloke. Well, you know, it's because they're held in CCAT conditions, which is like a fucking, a totally criminalised environment. So if they're holding you in a criminalised environment before they're sending you to a safe environment, what does the psychology tell you? It's a prison system, man. It's back to front. Right. A spokesperson from the MOJ referring to RAB by his alternative title of Deputy Prime Minister said, following a decision by the Deputy Prime Minister last year, there will now be greater scrutiny of parole board recommendations on open prison moves. The Deputy Prime Minister will oversee the decisions in the most high-risk cases personally. Oh, this is not good news for lifers and all that. You know, definitely not. Because even if you're rehabilitated and you've done all the grinding thing and done everything, if there's any controversy, you know, you keep you in. The government has already drawn up plans for wider reforms of the parole system. Oh, they're going to make it really hard. In a review which began under Buckland and is continuing under RAB, options are reported to include giving the Justice Secretary a veto over parole board decisions to release high-risk prisoners in the same way that he or she can already veto decisions to move them to open conditions. They just want to make it so it's a normal thing. The 56-year-old prisoner who walked out of North Sea camp on February 13th had been given 2 life sentences. Oh, you know, when you get 2 life sentences, this is like when you committed 2 serious acts of violence is naughty. And how he got to open conditions, he was very, very lucky. But he'll never ever get them again for doing this. And he won't be popular with any of the lads in the jail. Right, where was I? I've lost my place. Yeah, we're gone. Right? Was given 2 life sentences in 2000 for breaking into a woman's house, sex offender, through a cap flap, tying her up and sexually assaulting her while holding a knife to her throat. A manhunt was launched after he absconded and police warned the public not to approach him. Rightly so as well. He been in how long? 22 years? And he still never learned. 21 years and he still never learned. And he absconded. Aye. Labour Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reid said Dominic Raab has a serious question to answer about why such a dangerous criminal was deemed fit to be in an open prison where he could abscond. Which prisons had he been through? I would like to know. And the open prisons are seen by the public as a place to hold low-risk prisoners who are nearing the end of their sentences. Because they lack a perimeter wall, in practice they are widely used for high-risk prisoners. The security category policy framework governing their use says a male prisoner may be considered for open conditions if he is identified as low risk of harm to the public or has a suitable plan in place to manage identified risk. That's because there's poor rehabilitation in the DCATs, man. They just want to dough your head in by walking on the grass and keep you institutionalised and keep on top of you. Because they want you thinking you're getting an easy time with DCAT, leaving the door open for high-risk individuals. Figures released by the Ministry of Justice in 2020 under the Freedom of Information Act showed free or open prisons in England held almost 500 men convicted of sexual offences. See how all this is getting to the DCATs and assess posing a high risk of harm. 230 at Lear Hill, 203 at North Sea Camp and 165 at Haverick. The high proportion was at North Sea Camp where more than half the residents were men convicted of sexual offences and assessed as high risk. You see, this is what happens. We end up, it's just terrible where, you know, I don't know now about giving sex offenders rehabilitation and that, but it's clearly needed. It's causing a lot of problems for us non-sex offenders, I tell you that now. Right, well, I'm going to have a tab and I'll get back to you with some more articles. Right, let's get on with this. I thought I'd read some prisoner letters out that they publish on the website. Some of them are a bit mad, like. I've not read them in ages, gotta say that, right? This one's from HMP Wakefield. The name's not supplied. Right, in my experience, there are 4 types of prisoner in the system. They are as follows. Completely innocent. The genuinely innocent do not exist in prison. completely innocent too. In reality, I'm guilty as hell. In denial, but I wouldn't melt in my mouth. It is everybody else's fault. And 4, guilty. I'm 100% responsible for my actions. Please help me change. I would say that's quite fair. Right, this one's it's called Exercise and Mental Health. And it's from a prisoner called G. Trent at HMP The Verne. Gives a look. Oh, it's a bit longer, this one. It is common knowledge that exercise is good for our mental health. GPs are now prescribing gym sessions to people who suffer from depression. The opposite is also true. Our mental health can affect our physical health. If we are not in the best frame of mind, our physical health can suffer. It is no secret that people in prison generally have poor mental health. Being locked up for long periods of time can affect even the strongest of people. If you tie that with a prison diet, it is not surprising that people in prison are not in the best of health, physical or mentality. Society expects people living in prison to become positive members of their communities, and people who leave prison want to be in the best health they can be. The question is, then why do we as a society and the justice system treat prisoners in ways that only make prisoners' mental health worse, but expect positive behaviour? Good point, mate. The best, or should I say only, real way to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour is to look after people in prisons. I am not suggesting that prisoners get special treatment. What prisoners need is food that is actually nutritious and mental health care that helps deal with their problems. Remember, the grass is greenest when it is watered the most. That's a good point. I like that letter. Aye. But he's got a point about the food. It's really bad in prison. It's what they do to the food as well. They put it on a hot plate and leave it. They cook the food fresh sometimes, but when it comes out the oven, all the frozen stuff and the chips and all that, and then they just bang them in a hot plate for 3-4 hours before they send them to the wing for your tea. Aye, I've worked in many a prison kitchen. Aye. Oh. Here's another letter. Why no Argos in Scottish prisons? This is from R. Bradford at HMP Glenchill. That sounds alright. I doubt it, like. Following on from the letter in January, oh, this guy's a regular writer. Following on from the letter in January issue of Inside Time that was headlined Argos No More by Niamh, withheld in this prison. I support what he has written and can vouch that the products available here are ridiculously expensive rubbish, and a lot of what is advertised is not what you get. Given the majority of the prisoners do not have a lot of money, but we are constantly being ripped off when there are cheaper suppliers that we could use, but the SPS won't allow it. Argos is a reasonable company approved by HMPPS. We could also have access to Amazon, but instead they want us to use a company called I+A Grant Limited. based in a business centre in Wiltshire, playing devil's advocate for a moment. We have heard that it is connected to prison managers or ex-prison officers, and if this is true, it needs to be called out. Oh, it is like. It's not the only company that's been started up. Mind you, there is rumours that two prisoners set up a good service with selling trainers and all that, and have become a canny sales outlet on the internet and all that now. So I'll not mention them just in case. So can anyone let us know who I plus A Grant is, and any connection to ex or serving staff or governors? If everything is above board with this company, then we should know to stop the rumours. Aye. We should know if there's anything wrong with the company. And then there's no rumours. If there's no governors and no ex-prison employees set it all up, then aye. Well, there's stink of corruption. Surely it cannot be a secret. No, it cannot, mate. I think that's a good letter. Should be anybody out there knows about this stuff. Just look on Inside Time. Look on Google and type just Inside Time prison newspaper, and it'll come up, and you'll find this article dead easy. You really will. So. Right, got this one here as well. Right, prisoner died in ambulance after gate wouldn't open. This is another article. Right, a prisoner died in the back of an ambulance after it was held up for half an hour whilst trying to leave Leeds prison. Healthcare staff called the ambulance to Guy Paget, 73. I don't know, can I say it properly? Right, let's see. Healthcare staff called the ambulance for Guy Paget, 73, at 1:30 in the morning on the 16th of March last year because he needed urgent hospital treatment. Initially, there were no ambulances available, leading to a half-hour delay. Paramedics arrived at around 2 p.m. and at 2:35, the vehicle left the prison's healthcare unit with the patient aboard. However, the prison's main gate failed to open, preventing the ambulance from leaving. Then, according to escorting officers, a second problem arose when an operational support grade member in OSG, that's why we call them on-site goers, right? So the on-site goer member of the staff tried to prevent the vehicle from leaving because paperwork had not been completed. You see, that's the poor on-site goer there is just out of his depth and doesn't know what he's doing. He's just not trained properly. Alright? There should be no OSGs, there should be just proper prison officers who know what they're doing. Right? He died in the ambulance at 3:05 while it was parked in the prison grounds. So, terrible. A report on Paget's death by the prisons and probation ombudsman Sue McAllister concluded there was confusion about whether a gate pass was needed for the ambulance to leave the prison. The main prison gate malfunctioned when the ambulance attempted to leave the prison grounds to take Mr. Paget to hospital. These issues caused a delay in the ambulance leaving the prison. She said that although the delay did not appear to have affected the outcome of this case, it could make a critical difference in other medical emergencies. She made 2 recommendations to the prison's governor, that the prison gate is working in working order. Well, it should be naturally so, and that all prison staff who are involved in emergency escorts are aware of what paperwork is required for an ambulance to leave the prison, including whether a gate pass is required. I wonder how many hold-ups they've had at that gate. They've probably got similar issues, different prisons as well, but just not get reported or not, they've not, there's nobody died, so they're getting away with it. Paget, who was serving 14 years for drug offences, drug dealer, had been suffering from terminal cancer of the throat, which was recorded as the cause of death. God bless you, mate. Alright. Alright, this is another one, yeah. This is the last one I do. I'll see what feedback I get off you guys and see if I can get into this, and I'll try to make it a green screen and do some things on it. Right. So what's this called? Prison expansion sites identified. Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice has identified 16 prisons which will be expanded or refurnished to create 4,000 extra places. The announcement last week named 8 sites where new house blocks will be built, some of which had been announced previously, so they're getting announced twice. Bit of spin going on. The programme also includes refurbishment work at 7 prisons, 4 of which have already been completed. Canny. The additional prison places will count towards the total of 20,000 places which the government has said it will create in anticipation of a surge in the prison population due to longer sentences and the hiring of more police officers. There's a bit more dislike. I mean, I would like to know if there's loads of people in prison, right, who are low risk, right, who shouldn't really be in prison, and that whether the government thinks that people who are a danger to the public should be in prison, or people who just break the law and need just social situations help with, should be in prison. Why do we need 20,000 more places? I know why. It's so we can fill up them decats with people who are not dangerous. That's why. Right, however, let's go. According to the MOJ, new house blocks will be built at Bullingdon, Challenge Wood, Emily, High Point, Hindley, Wayland, Guys Marsh and Stocken. In addition, a new workshop will be built at Highdown. Right. Cool. The later 4 projects on this list were announced in 2020 when the MOJ said it would build new house blocks at Guy Marsh, creating 180 new places, Stockton creating 206 places, and Rye Hill creating 462 places, together with a workshop at Highdown, which will allow for the creation of 90 places in existing buildings. It was said at the time that the new facilities at the 4 sites would come into use in 2023 and together create 930 more places for a construction cost of 200 million. So it costs 200 million to what kind of What kind of a place? Oh, £200 million it's cost to house 930 prisoners. That sounds crazy to me, like. Sounds like government waste. Right. Describing the new house blocks, a spokesman said that I can't say this. The designs will mean easier access to supporting facilities such as healthcare. So the suicide rates might reduce, and people leaving the jail in hospitals who are critically ill and stuff and all that will maybe be better, which is a good thing. Better access to kitchens, that's a good thing. They've got better access to kitchens, better food. Morale of the prisoners rises. Concentrate on positive stuff. And staff officers. Yeah, have the staff run as long as they're all eating, they're trained, good. Should be no problems. Need dickhead screws who wind up the prisoners and need to be sent to security and then to DCAT to bother the prisoners in DCAT or they think they're having the cushy time. Which will help to protect frontline staff and clamp down on crime behind bars. You see, they're bringing the technology into the prison cells and putting phones in and stuff like that, you know. So it's going to be, I think they're going to put cameras in the dampers. If they can get away with putting the cameras in the dampers, they're going to put cameras and mics in the dampers. There's going to be, I think what the biggest problem is the politicians are sick of hearing that the prisons are crime universities where people go, they learn more about crime, they get more contacts and all that sort of stuff, you know. And so I think the government want to clamp down on that. So if you conspire about anything criminal in prison, they're going to have it on record. Aye. Refurbishments will be carried out at HMP Norwich, Birmingham and Liverpool. It has already been completed at Haverick, Felton, Aylesbury and Swinfell Hall. Refurbishments will increase prison capacity by bringing back into use cells which had been condemned as unfit for habitation. So, you know, where's the 200 million quid happening, yeah? I mean, all you do is skim the walls with bloody concrete, a couple inches of concrete, repoint the walls outside, make sure the roof's cush and that's fit for purpose. The MOJ says most of the building projects were subject to planning permission. And though this has already been obtained for the work at Stockton, Guysmarsh, High Down, Birmingham and Liverpool, Justice Secretary, Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab said our prison building programme will deliver an extra 20,000 places. Places by the mid-20s to punish offenders, deter crime and protect the public. We are also overhauling the prison regime using prison design, in-cell technology, absence-based drug rehabilitation and work to drive down reoffending. Them words sound great to me, but the technology in the dampers, it's just going to be there to spy on you. Will it be educational? Will that technology in that damper be about helping you to support the time that you spend in prison? That you focus on rehabilitation and positive stuff around all your issues? Or is it there just to spy on you to see if you're conspiring to commit further crimes? You know, it's just, I don't know. The proof's in the pudding, innit? So we'll see. Keep an eye on this. Right. That's all on me, folks. Please like, subscribe, if I get some positive feedback off this, I'll do some more. And yeah, my part 2 of the West End's coming up. I've got some good places in mind to go to. And some canny stories. My head has been a bit done in over the last few months with stuff, but you just get on with it, don't you? Yeah, you just get on with it. I've been writing my book, so, you know, that, and I've got to write this chapter about Durham Prison Hospital. So once I've wrote that chapter about Durham Prison Hospital, I'll make a video about my experience and share my experience of how I escaped from Durham jail. So, talk soon, folks.